Our biggest ever winner. For your chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys tonight.
There is only, in this case, one head that rolls well enough. Simon of Sudbury had his head cut off, and it was then the peasants, the revolting peasants at the time, played football with it at the Tower of London. I don't know who won.
Archbishop Welby has just shown everyone what a horrible man he really is.
Given it a lot of thought, I've taken advice, and no, I'm not going to resign for this.
He appears to have absolutely no remorse whatsoever for appearing to cover up for a prolific child abuser, and
the Independent Office of National Statistics has conducted vital work on the state of immigration and found the previous government were running an open borders experiment.
Well, now it's revealed that there'll have to be a huge increase in migrants in order to build the 1.5 million new homes that Starmer's promised. Where are they all going to live then? And
we have been very clear that for working people, we are not going to increase their taxes. So that means we are not increasing income tax, national insurance or VAT.
So that's what he said.
Can you say in the clearest possible terms whether from here on in to the end of your term there will be any tax rises?
What I can't do is say to you there are no circumstances unforeseen in the future that wouldn't lead to any change at all.
He's going to put your taxes up again, isn't he? And
after Mauritius elections, the government will move towards treaty signature, and it is then our intention to pursue ratification in 2025.
Right, this is mental. So now our Foreign Secretary is reportedly offering Mauritius even more money than before just to take the Chagos Islands. Plus,
Could you please tell me, Councillor, what unfair advantages white people have in your force?
I would hope not, none.
Did they have any advantages?
No.
Then how can you be institutionally racist?
Yeah, diversity training, shock horror, is leading to a load of false racism claims. Talking of diversity, Britain's top model is trans, apparently, and the usual types were on Question Time last night.
And don't forget, because those populist policies in the 30s, a certain Adolf Hitler was elected.
Why do they always have to bring up Hitler? I've got tomorrow's front pages tonight with my wonderful panel this evening. We are joined by Guido Fawkes' Ellie Wheatley, the Director of Migration and Economic Prosperity, Stephen Wolfe, and ex-Labour advisor Matthew Torbit. R1, British pub culture, the best in the world. Get ready, Britain, here we go. You will not believe what Justin Welby's done now. Next.
Very good evening. It's just gone 9 o'clock. I'm Sphere Hill with your latest headlines from the GB Newsroom. Our top story this evening, 3 million people received an emergency alert from the government this afternoon after forecasters issued a rare red warning for winds as Storm Dara hits the UK. Gusts of up to 90 miles an hour are expected to batter parts of Wales and the southwest of England, including Cardiff, Bristol and Devon. The warning, in place from 3 a.m. tomorrow, calls for people to take care as flying debris and falling trees could pose a danger to life. An amber warning is also in place for the west coast of the UK, from Scotland to Cornwall and Northern Ireland, with large waves and potential damages to homes and buildings. Heavy rain and over 100 flood warnings are also in effect, only adding to the weekend's challenges. Sir Keir Starmer says civil servants will help to push through new changes under the Labour government. The Prime Minister praised civil servants, saying they bring a strong sense of public service. This comes as the PM faces calls from the Union for Senior Civil Servants to immediately rebuild trust with the civil service after using Trumpian language to describe them.
Set out the milestones in my speech this week about what the government is going to do to change the lives of people across the country that we want to be measured by. At the same time, I made it clear they'll be used to drive through the change in the way the government delivers. And I think lots of civil servants will say, good, great, give us the leadership, we want that change too.
Now, the European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, has signed a controversial new trade deal with South American countries, which could have a significant impact on farmers in the UK. The deal has been met with firm opposition from several EU member states and is expected to face a backlash from the farming sectors across Europe, with a significant impact in Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK. European farmers have consistently protested against the EU-Mercosur deal, arguing it could lead to cheap imports of South American foods, especially beef, which they claim does not meet the EU's environmental and food safety standards. And the Princess of Wales has made a rare public appearance with her family at Westminster Abbey for the annual Christmas carol service this evening. The royal couple walked into the historic Abbey, where they married in 2011, with their children, who stopped at a kindness tree to hang messages on its branches in dedication to someone that has supported them during their lives. Prince Louis left a touching Christmas message to his grandparents, inspired by his mother's festive celebration. This is the fourth time the Princess has hosted the event in celebration of the positive qualities found in many and to bring cheer to the capital and associated events around the country. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'll be back in an hour, but now it's back to Patrick.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome along. Justin Welby has been forced to apologise for his apology. The disgraced Archbishop of Canterbury, whose reputation will forever be in tatters, stood up in the House of Lords and humiliated himself. To be clear, Welby was forced to resign after it emerged that he didn't report a prolific paedophile and child abuser to the police. This is a big deal. Countless boys and young men were raped, tortured and beaten. Welby was made aware of the catalogue of abuse and he did nothing. He did nothing, OK? Well, if that was you, wouldn't you be so ashamed and embarrassed that you probably wouldn't want to show your face in public again? Well, not Welby. He's been socialising at cocktail parties, and yesterday he stood up in the House of Lords. This was his moment to apologise. This was his moment to show that he took this kind of stuff really seriously. What did he do?
If you want to make God laugh, make plans. Well, on that basis, next year I will be causing God more hilarity than anyone else for many years. If you pity anyone, pity my poor diary secretary, who's seen weeks and months of work disappear in a puff of a resignation announcement. The shame of what has gone wrong, whether one is personally responsible or not, must require a head to roll. And there is only, in this case, one head that rolls well enough. I hope not literally. One of my predecessors in 1371, Simon of Sudbury, had his head cut off, and it was then the peasants, the revolting peasants at the time, played football with it at the Tower of London. I don't know who won.
Insufferable, isn't it? You know, he's talking about child abuse here. Just look at the look on the face of that lady bishop next to him there, Sarah Mullally, the Bishop of London. She looks like she's just dying inside, doesn't she? She's probably quite jealous of Simon of Sudbury at this point. He wouldn't have had to listen to it, would he? I mean, Welby's trying to say that he's a martyr. No. A report revealed that there was a paedophile cover-up, OK? Now, Welby's got form for not taking this particularly seriously.
I've given it a lot of thought, I've taken advice, and no, I'm not going to resign for this.
Now, that turn of phrase there, when he said "for this," is something that the brave survivors say shows that he just doesn't get it.
The comment that really upset us as survivors was when he said, "I am not going to resign for this." There was something about the way he said "for this" that almost implied to us that he was trivializing and minimalizing the extent of our sufferings. Is it not enough that we went through what we went through?
I'll go as far as to say that I think that Justin Welby is quite a horrible man. He presided over dwindling church attendance numbers. He allowed illegal immigrants to use his church to break into Britain. He let the churches be shut down during COVID. He spoke out against Rwanda. But worst of all, is he behaving, do you think, like a man who really thinks paedophilia is an awful thing? Is he? He didn't report it. He said that he wouldn't quit over it. He seems to think he's a martyr. Now, Justin Welby did apologise for his performance in the Lords. Here's what he had to say. "I would like to apologise for the hurt that my speech has caused. I understand that my words, the things I have said, and those I omitted to say, have caused further distress for those who were traumatised and continue to be harmed by John Smythe's heinous abuse and by the far-reaching effects of other perpetrators of abuse. It did not intend to overlook the experience of survivors or to make light of the situation, and I am very sorry for having done so." Look, I still think that the best thing for Welby is if he disappears somewhere very far away, never to be seen again. Let's get thoughts from our wonderful panel this evening. Director of the Centre of Migration and Economic Prosperity, it's Stephen Wolfe. I've got senior reporter at Guido Fawkes, Ellie Wheatley, and former Labour Party advisor Matthew Torbet. Stephen, I'll start with you. Look, that for me was absolutely astonishing, that really. I mean, he doesn't seem to be behaving like a man who, and I'm sure he will say he does take paedophilia very seriously. I'm not trying to drag him into that. But he's not really behaving like a bloke who does, is he?
He's not a man that's behaving like a decent man. Patronising, haughty, arrogant, self-serving. All of these come to mind. And some of it comes into the words that he used. He didn't use peasants' revolt. He used revolting peasants. That is the same language of Clinton when she said those things she said about the citizens of America, the same ones of the deplorables. It's that kind of mindset. And what I find fascinating is you use the words Simon de Sudbury, who was the Archbishop at the time, who lost his head in the Peasants' Revolt during a period in which you saw huge immigration into the country from 1066 to 1300, increased by 250%, in which farmers were attacked and had their lands removed, in which taxes were increased. And Simon de Sudbury did one thing. He supported the government over the peasants' revolt. What has this particular archbishop done? Supported the government and all the changes that are very similar to that in this country. He needs to lose his head, if not his tongue, for the way that he speaks about people in this country.
Metaphorically speaking. Metaphorically speaking. Yeah.
No, I don't want to be arrested by it.
No. Ali, what does this say of the type of person that Welby is, do you think?
But listen, I mean, it was a very distasteful speech. You know, listen, he might not have known the full information of what was going on. You know, you're head of a very large organisation, so it's highly possible that he did think that this case was reported to the police. But nonetheless, I mean, he really is, you know, he's more of a political activist than a theologian, right? I mean, this is not the first time that he's had to apologise for something that he said. Do you remember when he had to apologise for likening climate change to the Nazi Germany? I mean, he also likened Trump and Brexit to fascism. He also called the Rwanda plan ungodly. I mean, he's not exactly an aspiring person to be leading the church, is he?
No, indeed. And this is. He has, for obvious reasons, I mean, his former role, you know, kind of demonstrates, really, that you should be quite a nice guy, like you're an archbishop, right? That's it. And then I just look at this and I'm like, I don't think he necessarily is. And to be shown his face at cocktail parties, I mean, Ian Hislop told a fantastic story about how Welby just rocked up and was trying to say, well, I didn't really know about it. And Ian Hislop said to him, well, was 4 years of lying about it not enough for you, Archbishop? And everything. He just doesn't seem to get it. Does this point, Matthew, to maybe something a bit bigger, the arrogance of that class of individual, do you think?
I don't know. We maybe shouldn't tarnish everybody with the same brush as him. I would say, to put it more bluntly, he's just a bit of a muppet. Like, you can't go around acting like this. And actually, I think there's something quite ironic about what is now a former man of the cloth not actually asking for forgiveness.
Yeah.
If that's me, I wouldn't be able to sleep if I'd have known this had happened on my watch. And I think to not stand up he had a total opportunity today to apologise properly and to say, I'm really sorry and I seek forgiveness from those that have been affected and I should have done more. And the other thing is, it's about deeds and actions, not words. He said in his original resignation, I am responsible, both institutionally and personally. And yet he's almost hinted today whether he actually is responsible, because he said, well, if I'm responsible or not, you have to go. So he's full of it, for want of a better term.
And making out that he's a martyr. But there's a wider point here, Stephen, I think, that, OK, we're a secular country, fine. We are a Christian country as well, and church numbers have been dwindling in the Church of England, and a lot of them have been dwindling under Welby's watch. There's a man there who is fined to sign the church up for £1 billion worth of slavery reparations. Remarkably, then it turned out, completely unrelated, of course, that his own family used to own slaves. There we go, talk about inherent guilt maybe there. But he doesn't seem to care too much about local parishes not being able to have enough people on the pews, being underfunded, people turning their back on the Church of England. And then you look at stuff like that he's put out there in the House of Lords today, and you think, has he actually been bad for Britain in that respect?
I think he's been very bad for Britain in lots of ways, not only because at the time that we needed in COVID, we needed a religious leader who was willing and capable to actually give us some hope, some aspirations, some ability to get through these issues. And instead, he closed the churches and criticised those in the local vicars for actually doing that and wanting to have it open. In many ways, the idea of criticising those people who voted for Brexit, as you said, and more than that, those who, like myself, believe in managed migration as being racist, creates a divide in this country. What we needed was his predecessor, Rowan, who was very much more a thoughtful theologian, capable of giving us the kind of words that are needed. He actually did pretty well, I think, at the wedding. Why couldn't he not carry on, do all that sort of thing when the people needed it? And instead, I take your point on this. Why is a man of the cloth not apologising deeply in the way that he should do? And that's why I think there's this arrogance. I disagree to an extent. I think there is a greater degree of people who have reached this plateau of power across our institutions who are totally ignoring the people and believing themselves as being far more. The Simon de Sudburys is a crucial element that's sitting through our current elite.
There are... look, I don't want to put a categoric figure on it because, you know, by definition, unfortunately, when you're dealing with things like child abuse, etc., not everyone comes forward, quite possibly not all of those people still be alive today, etc. But there was a wide-scale child sexual abuse issue and violence against children scandal that took place there. And for those people, those brave survivors who came forward to reveal their own situations and really battled to try and get that story out and try to get justice, you know, when you see someone like that stand up and seeming to be laughing and joking about, well, if one head's got to roll, I mean, those kids were beaten and abused. It's disgusting.
I know, and also we get, don't feel sorry for me, feel sorry for my diary secretary. What about the victims? I mean, it really is.
I think that was going to your point that he's actually going to miss out on the parties.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I mean, it is unbelievable. I mean, I think he generally thinks only God can judge him, no one else, and so he can get away and say whatever he wants.
Well, it's exactly like you said there. Well, if you're going to feel sorry for... No one's feeling sorry for you, man. No one. Who is, like... There's, like, maybe 3 people around him that are like, oh, you know, you've fallen on your sword, all of this stuff. That's it. They're the only people who feel sorry.
I think maybe Paula from the post office might be feeling sorry for him. Because he was a big backer of her, wasn't she, when she was doing the same thing?
Well, quite possibly. Yeah, I mean, look, do you think that this is a bit of a sign that maybe the next person who is the Archbishop needs to, I don't know, just be a little bit more sound and not quite as woke, do you think?
I'm all for people being sound. I think maybe it opens up an interesting discussion of what place in society the church has. And, you know, as much as I appreciated some of his political interventions when talking about child poverty and other things, I think, is there a need for the head of the church to be getting involved in Brexit necessarily, or deeper policy discussions? Your role is to be there, I believe, to support people, to offer people, you know, shelter potentially and other things. And yeah, I think with Stephen's point, I appreciate what he said back, and I do think there is also a wider conversation to be said about how toxic institutions are in this country. And actually, is it any wonder that people don't come forward, whether it be, it's not quite the same, but you look at incidents and allegations at the BBC over several years. If there isn't a complaints process you have confidence in, this stuff is always going to foster, and there's only so long we can talk about bad apples if the whole orchid is going rotten. Yeah, good stuff. Well, look, good start. Thank you very, very much. Still to come, though, Donald Trump is set to meet Kemi Badenoch, and the Prime Minister seeks to push through the Chagos Islands deal against America's will. Is this special relationship really now that strong? We've got former advisor of the US House of Representatives Foreign Affairs Committee, Lee Cohen, to discuss that. But up next, political commentator Aman Bagal is going to go head-to-head with anti-racism activist Iman Aitan. Why? Well, apparently, diversity training in the workplace is now being blamed for a tidal wave of completely false racism claims. I mean, who could have possibly seen that one coming? Stay tuned.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Penelope's, which is situated in the sophisticated hotel Armano in Covent Garden, delivers punchy dishes from the executive chef Fez Ozalgan. London-born, she's of Turkish Cypriot heritage, and at the tender age of 16, she enrolled at catering college. So, it's lovely to see you, Fez. Welcome to the programme.
Thank you.
So you're now in a very prestigious position. I'm always impressed that in the world of chefing, it's possible to get to very senior positions quite young, if you're good enough. Talent is rewarded, is it not?
Definitely, yeah. It does take a lot of hard work, for sure. But, yes.
When did you know that you wanted to be a chef?
Honestly, because my parents have a cafe in Barking. And I used to go there when I was younger, in school holidays and weekends, to help them. And actually, I'll be honest, I just used to really admire everyone calling my dad chef, and that's what I wanted.
And what about your food inspirations? Because I believe the food that you produce now is what? Mediterranean influenced and also to some extent Middle East influenced?
Yeah, and Spanish as well at Penelope's, yeah. So our concept at Penelope's, our CEO, Ariel, he is Israeli, but he grew up in Marbella. So,
These are the great influences.
Yeah.
What have you brought here today?
OK, so we have our sea bream tartare, which is a really good inspiration of both Spanish and Israeli. It's marinated with harissa, and it's served with a really nice gazpacho sauce, caviar on top.
I wonder whether the camera can see that. It is the most gorgeous coloured sauce on top of my sea bream tartare. That's marvellous.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Patrick Christys tonight. Does diversity training do more harm than good? It's time now for the head-to-head. So, diversity training may well be the cause of an uprise in false racism claims. That's what researchers in the US have claimed as their study found those who read extracts by diversity scholars went on to register 35% more microaggressions, yes, that's right, microaggressions, in scenarios where it didn't exist. It was suggested that this could help explain the febrile atmosphere around race, that diversity schemes are counterproductive as well. Now, what do you think? Do we still really need diversity training in our society? Is there a case to say that it actually does more to divide us than bring us together? Let me know your thoughts now. gbnews.com/your say, or you can, of course, tweet me at GBNews. While you're there, make sure you go and vote in our poll. I'll bring you the results very shortly. But to battle this one out, I'm joined by political commentator Aman Bagar and anti-racism activist Iman Ace. And both of you, thank you very much. Great to have you both on the show. So, Aman, I'll start with you on this. Do you think that we need to scrap diversity programmes in workplaces?
Good to be on the show, Patrick. Good to see you back. Look, I think we shouldn't have had diversity training in the first place. Let's be honest, the free market, most companies which are going there to make a profit work pretty well without having to be diversity trained. Now, let's be honest, without wanting to sound like an episode of Goodness Gracious Me, you know, the CEO of Google, Indian, Microsoft, Indian, Adobe, Indian, YouTube, Indian, the World Bank president is Indian. But the fact is, coming back to the UK, British Indians, for example, are more likely to be in level 1 professional jobs than white British people. Now, where's the need for diversity training in that? And more so, I think it foments division. Division because it starts on from a default position by basically saying, well, you know what, the whole country is racist, so we need to train people not to be racist, when that's not the case.
All right, I'll come back to you. Iman, I'll come to you now. Or we'll just also say, well done the Indians, by the sounds of things there, Iman. They've absolutely smashed it. So, but Iman, do we need diversity training in the workplace, or does it lead to, as this report would suggest anyway, more people maybe seeing racism when it might not necessarily be there?
I love the fact that you've said that, and it's such an important point. May I try not to be kind of intellectual in this point, but I want to say, if we're going to see racism, it's because of our brains. There's a process, it's called a cognitive process in our brains. It's called the reticular activating system. So if you prioritize something, Aman or Patrick, if you prioritize something in your life, you're going to see it everywhere.
Yeah.
You're going to see it everywhere. That's how your brain works. Am I lying? We know how brain works, right? Neurocircuits, neurons, etc. If you think of something and you believe it is a priority, you're going to prioritize it, and therefore you're going to see it everywhere. It's just like if you buy a new car, you know, like you get a new Mercedes, and the next minute, you know, you start seeing Mercedes everywhere. It's the exact same thing. So in terms of, do we see racism everywhere? Where it isn't or where it is, I would argue it's because it's there. We've now become conscious of it, and now we're trying to find a solution as to how to fix it.
Okay, fair enough. Aman, I'll throw it back your way for this, everybody. Now, as I understand it, the way that equality law works in this country is if you are bringing a racism allegation against your employer, more often than not, the burden of proof is on the employer to try to prove that they are not racist, as opposed to you having to prove that there was really some definitive racism, i.e.
No, you're wrong.
Feelings matter. No, I'm not.
You're wrong.
I'm not wrong.
You are wrong. I won't interrupt you, but I will say you are wrong in that respect. If you're going to break it down in that respect, in terms of how organisations work, in terms of the grievance policy, the disciplinary policy and the complaints policy, you're wrong. But I'll continue.
All right. Well, we can disagree on that. I mean, I am aware of some experiences with this kind of stuff where it's very difficult sometimes, which is why I suspect, Aman, quite a lot of employers try to do some of these diversity things, so that if they do ever have some kind of grievance brought against them for some kind of microaggression, they can fall back and say, well, actually, we do diversity training. Look, we're not racist, and maybe it's a cover.
And that's exactly what it is. This is a multi-billion-pound industry around the world, certainly in the West, that is there as a performative, you know, this Marxist performative bakwas. That, look, you know, we're ticking a box. We're giving you an hour's worth of seminar in your lunch hour to try and train you not to be racist towards others around you. And it's not even that. I mean, do you remember Coca-Cola asking their employees to be less white? I mean, that's not inclusiveness. That is the very definition of racism.
I mean, with respect, Justin Trudeau tried to be less white on a couple of occasions with disastrous consequences. So I'm not really sure that's exactly what Coca-Cola had in mind there. But, Iman, when it comes to things like microaggressions in the workplace, I mean, these allegations that are made against people can absolutely ruin lives. I'm not trying to diminish genuine out-and-out racism, right? I mean, I think, you know, the obvious stuff that people can see, terrible, I mean, it's literally illegal, right? So, you know, and so it should be. But things like microaggressions, they can have a really devastating impact on someone's life. And with respect, I do wonder if it's quite easy to lob a bit of a racism allegation out there. It does seem to happen a lot when people are disgruntled in a workplace. All of a sudden it can become a racist issue.
Yes. You know what? I'm going to be so honest with you both. I mean, I think you made a very valid point in terms of I would use the term virtue signalling. So I wouldn't use Marxist. Not everyone's a Marxist just because they're woke, Aman. But some people do virtue signal, right? Organizations, charities, etc. So I'm actually in agreement with you when you talk about this kind of thing of organizations or charities or the church, for example, delving into equality, diversity and inclusion initiatives. And that being perceived as virtue signaling, I fully get that. What I do want to say is that it starts from a nice place, as in we understand that there is racism in this country and therefore we are trying to rectify it. And the easiest way to do that is to follow the law, right? Follow the law, the Equalities Act, 9 protected characteristics, race being one of them. And I will actually pose a question to both of you. I appreciate, Aman, that you feel that this is very much virtue signaling when we talk about racism and we talk about the effects of racism for Black and brown people, including yourself. So I would argue, I don't think you would say that about Sikhs. You're wearing a turban. Correct me if I'm wrong in saying that it's a turban. I think it's a turban.
All right.
I don't think you would argue that if I was a Sikh. And I also don't think you would argue that, Aman, if we were really to delve into the Equalities Act, if we really talk about the Equalities Act, I don't think he would talk about awareness training in regards to sexism, for example, domestic violence and stalking. I don't think he would talk about that in regards to disabilities and awareness training in terms of ableism. I don't think he would talk about that in terms of religious discrimination and how this nation should not be anti-Semitic. I don't think, Aman,
okay,
allow
cool.
me to finish, allow me to finish, I'll just finish off by saying, I don't think, allow me to finish, Aman, I've not finished, I'll keep it brief, please allow me to finish, thank you very much, sir. I don't think he would say that about 3 of the 9 protected characteristics. But I do believe, Patrick and Aman, you are saying this about race. 1 of the 9 protected characteristics of the Equalities Act of 2010, which is there to protect everyone from every type of prejudice.
Right, okay. All right, we get your point. We get your point, Iman, but we are running out of time. So
1 out of the 9, which is race, black people. You don't like awareness training in regards to racism. You like it with Sikhs. You like it with.
Let's let Iman come back to it. Iman, fine. We've sat here and listened to you, but we are pressed for time, Iman. So I'm going to let Iman, because look, reading between the lines there, Iman. I think basically, Iman's maybe saying that you might only have a problem with this when it relates to black people. So I think we do need you to come back to that.
That's my point. I'm trying to make to you guys that you only have a problem in terms of...
I know, that's the point you made. All right, I know, that's the point you made, which is why I'm trying to let Iman respond to it. So come on, let's do it.
You don't have a problem with all the other 9 protected characteristics. You have a problem with race. And my point...
Iman, I'm going to have to ask you to stop, I'm afraid. I'm really sorry, but I'm going to have to ask you to stop and let Iman come back to it, and then we're going to have to go. OK, Iman.
Look, thank you, Patrick. Look, I would argue the same what I'm arguing about race for all the other protected characteristics. Look, it's illegal. It's a criminal offence to discriminate against someone on all of those protected characteristics. And therefore, if you're having issues in the workplace, you go and seek the police's help. You go to the courts. You seek legal recourse.
50 years of review. You're just talking nonsense. Don't talk about police.
Iman, come on. Look, we can't have people... All right, look, I'm sorry, we can't have people talking over each other. So, Iman, you're going to have to be very quick, then we're going to go. All right.
Look, the bottom line is, if this is where you and I disagree. I start off from the point of view that everyone is not a racist, is not a bigot, does not have a prejudice, and that's the starting point. If someone by the law, they don't need training. You don't train society to be less bigoted.
Would you say that about domestic violence? Would you say that about sexism? Would you say that about misogyny? Would you say that about anti-Semitism?
We're going to have to get going, I'm afraid. As much as I enjoy this robust debate, but we're going to have to, because we're out of time. So thank you very much. Thank you. That's political commentator Iman Bagal there and anti-racism activist Iman Ayton. Right, I think we all need a little bit of a Zen religion back in our lives now, don't we? So during Advent, as we count down to Christmas Day, we're hearing from church ministers across the country. Each day they have a very special message for you to celebrate the festive season.
The GBNews Advent Calendar, Day 6.
Hi, I'm Tom Finnemore. At Christmas, I find I'm surrounded by excess. The pressure to buy the perfect gift, the ever-increasing temptation to overindulge in food and drink, and the constant pressure to have more. But the Bible offers a different perspective. In Isaiah it says, "Woe to those who rise early in the morning to run after their drinks, who stay up late at night till they're inflamed with wine." This wisdom speaks to the dangers of excess, of filling our lives with things that promise satisfaction, but if we're honest, ultimately leave us feeling empty. It reminds us that the true gift of the season isn't found in what we consume or buy, or how much we can fit into our lives, but in something much deeper. The birth of Jesus Christ, who brings the gift of peace and the promise of hope. So this Christmas, let's slow down, be present with those we love, remembering that lasting fulfillment comes not from excess, but from gratitude and contentment found in the person of Jesus Christ. Have a Merry Christmas.
And you can see all of our very special Advent messages as Christmas approaches by going to gbnews.com/Advent. And yes, please do have a very Merry Christmas. Coming up, Sir Keir Starmer admits that he might have to raise your taxes again. Economist and former advisor to Margaret Thatcher, Patrick Minford, will join us to discuss that. But next, Trump is set to meet Kemi Badenoch, and the Prime Minister seeks to push through the Chagos Islands deal against America's will by giving Mauritius even more money than we planned on giving them. What's going on here? Former advisor to the US House of Representatives Foreign Affairs Committee, Lee Cohen, joins me, and he's next.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Storm Dara is expected to bring heavy outbreaks of rain and some severe gales at times as we head into the weekend. Hail snow too for Scotland, and there are multiple Met Office warnings in force, so do stay up to date on our website for those. This is Storm Dara here out to the west, bringing in heavy outbreaks of rain alongside these frontal systems and a good squeeze in the Isobars, so very strong winds at times across the bulk of the country, particularly around western coasts. These outbreaks of rain are set to continue overnight, still falling as snow across high ground in Scotland, and we're really going to see those winds strengthen in western areas overnight too, particularly in western parts of Wales, where we do have a red Met Office wind warning in force too. We could see gusts here reaching around 80 to 90 miles per hour. So for the start of Saturday then, it's going to be a very wet start across a lot of the country. Scotland seeing outbreaks of rain, still some hill snow across higher ground as well. And similar across northern parts of England, Northern Ireland, heavy outbreaks of rain and very strong winds, particularly around coastal areas, but even inland areas seeing some very strong gusts at times. Western parts of Wales likely to see severe gales here at times, making very difficult driving conditions. And on the whole, through Saturday, there is likely to be disruption as a result of the storm. The heavy outbreaks of rain continuing. Still a very windy day across a large portion of the country, particularly around western coasts. And looking at the temperatures too later on, we can see highs generally between 9 to 10 Celsius, but in those very, very strong winds as well. That's really going to add on to the wind chill, so it is going to feel a very chilly day, particularly under the rain and in those strong winds. Through into Sunday, we do start to see the weather settle down slightly. We do have some outbreaks of rain still, particularly in eastern areas, a few showers feeding into eastern parts of Scotland. The best of the weather, or the driest and brightest of the weather across Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland. But it's still going to be a very blustery day on offer, and we won't really see more settled conditions until we head into next week. Bye for now.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark Meets at My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Now, the strength of our special relationship with the US has come into question massively after Sir Keir Starmer's relationship with Donald Trump may just be the weakest of all of our recent prime ministers. But Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch has flown over to meet the US President-elect and his team, apparently, and speak at a Washington think tank surrounded by centre-right political parties. This follows as Nigel Farage revealed that Donald Trump's team were appalled by the Chagos Islands deal that the PM is pushing through against America's will. And in fact, there appears to be an update on that, because the latest today is that David Lammy is supposedly trying to offer Mauritius even more money than before to rush this deal through. Even Mauritius don't really seem to want these islands anymore. So what's going to happen here? Joining me now is the former advisor to the US House of Representatives, Lee Cohen. Lee, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. What does it say, really, about this special relationship, if indeed it is the case that we have this bonkers situation where our Foreign Secretary is now throwing more money than ever at the Mauritians to try to part with a bit of British sovereign territory before the big guy comes into power in Washington?
Well, Patrick, it's a pleasure to be with you. The proposed agreement to cede the Chagos Islands to Mauritius is a reckless decision that sacrifices Western security interests. It strengthens China's strategic position and strengthens stresses the U.S.-UK special relationship. It is a disgraceful act of appeasement by the Starmer government and the outgoing Biden administration.
I just never thought that we would see the day, seriously, where an elected member of parliament in this country here in Britain was clearly so desperate to give away a bit of our territory that they're willing to offer absolutely anything, including, by the way, take the 60-odd or so Sri Lankan migrants who are on the island, some of whom, it has turned out, may well be child abusers, which is a huge problem for us. So it looks as though we're going to be welcoming some of those people potentially here into this country. How strange do you think our relationship is going to be between our two countries going forward for the next few years?
Well, I'm afraid that it is going to be strained. Unconscionably, Starmer and the outgoing Biden administration are putting their extreme ideologies of appeasement of international bodies over the national and security interests of their respective nations and their allies. And quite frankly, Patrick, this couldn't be more on collision course with the philosophy of none other than one Donald Trump.
Yeah, we've got a great opportunity staring before us here, I think, which is that Trump actually likes Britain. He loves our royal family. He's got business interests here as well, and he does have connections here. And it has coincided, obviously, with a regime that has previously called him a neo-Nazi sympathising woman hater and all of this stuff. And, you know, that's not a great look. The other aspect to it is, for all of Trump's talk on tariffs, a lot of those are from countries that, in his view, are flooding America with drugs and illegal migrants, which Britain is not. We had a unique opportunity here, I think, to get a really good trade relationship with America and establish closer ties there. And I worry that we just are going to be unable to do that now because our Prime Minister can't bring himself to do it.
Well, with huge policy gulfs, Patrick, on issues ranging from Ukraine to energy policy and, as you mentioned before, the Chagos Islands deal, the firm bedrock foundations of the special relationship could become the shifting sands of uncertainty. Let's face it, Trump prefers his British politicians with a bit more bluster. He and Boris had a mutual admiration society, and Nigel Farage has been a regular at Mar-a-Lago from the summer on. Human rights lawyer Starmer, with his very left-wing policies, as Trump identified them, is like fingernails on a chalkboard to Trump. And this isn't just a difference of opinion, it's a clash of ideologies as well as styles destined to erupt sooner or later. And notwithstanding Starmer's pledge the other day not to choose between alignment with Europe or the U.S., Trump sees him for what he is, a Eurocentric human rights lawyer who favors progressive policies and appeasement of global elites.
I think you could get very messy very quickly for Starmer. We've just had the Great Reset. But if America does go gangbusters and your economy gets boosting and you pull back from some of those net zero policies and all of that stuff, I just think that could be quite bad news for Starmer, because it's the Trump administration could be like, here's what you could have won to us here in Britain. But thank you very much, Lee. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. You take care, and I'll see you again very, very soon. That's the former advisor to the US House of Representatives there, Lee Cohen. Coming up, I'll ask if the Prime Minister is really committed to getting a grip on this country's immigration crisis, because, well, he didn't mention it in his milestones, and now it's emerged that he wants to build 1.5 million new homes. Fantastic. But in order to do that, we're going to have to import hundreds of thousands of foreign workers. So where are they going to live? Oh, and it turns out it might raise your taxes again. Economist and former advisor to Margaret Thatcher, Patrick Minford, is on very shortly to pick the bones out of that one. Stay tuned.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Following the summer riots and the resurgence of far-right ideologies, the former Education Secretary told peers that reinforcing shared values is now more crucial than ever.
So we're asking this morning, should we teach British values or would it be a step backward?
Or how do you even start? To debate this now, we're joined by the Campaign for Real Education chairman, Chris McGovern, and political commentator Matthew Stadlen.
Well, I think these days, particularly in schools, it's quite fashionable to look at the negative sides of Britain's identity, particularly British history. Personally, I think I'm very proud of being British, and I think we need to be proud of our country like most other countries around the world are.
As Chris says, Matthew, lots of other countries do it. Heck, you only have to look at the United States, don't you, to see how sort of patriotic they are. Is there anything wrong in trying to instil a bit of that amongst our youth?
I'm just worried it sounds a little bit communist, Stephen, being told what it is to be British. I've got my own personal but very vague views of what British values might be: inclusivity, patience, being able to queue, decency, respect for democracy and the rule of law. But I mean, very many people will have different sets of values. Some people are racist. So are British values racist? You talked about the far right. I think we all know what the far right is. It's sort of violent, xenophobic racism. But if you have, say, I don't know, 3-4 million people in this country who might describe themselves as racist or far right, and they're British, or as British as you lot and as I am, does that mean those values get taught in schools? My worry is it's a little bit communist.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Now, Sir Keir Starmer was asked on BBC Breakfast whether we can expect any more tax rises. Here's what he said.
What I can't do is say to you there are no circumstances unforeseen in the future that wouldn't lead to any change at all. Because if you just look at COVID and the Ukraine situation, everybody knows there are things that we can't see now. But I can tell you our intention was to do the tough stuff in that budget.
It's that word unforeseen there that I think is a major problem. You know, there was an unforeseen £22 billion black hole. Anything can be technically unforeseen, can't it? And that results in tax rises. But, yes, anyway, joining me now to discuss this is the economist and former advisor to Margaret Thatcher, Patrick Minford. Patrick, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. Always enjoy speaking to a fellow namesake. But, look, what do you think about that, then? Are we almost definitely going to get more tax rises under Starmer?
My pleasure. Well, I should think so. We just had a completely disastrous budget, which has damaged all the prospects for growth. And this is strange because the government says that that's their main objective. But what they've done is not only raise taxes in general, but most damagingly, which hasn't got them any extra revenue, raise vicious taxes on small family firms and small businesses through this inheritance and capital gains process. And that's ridiculous and very damaging to growth, because that's where growth comes from. It comes from incentives for these for entrepreneurs to innovate and invest and so produce growth in productivity.
Well, one of the big things, Patrick, that they always say now is that we need to do this for the NHS. Farmers have to pay inheritance tax at a greater rate for the NHS. Parents who send their kids to private school have to pay small tax for the NHS. Are we taxing everything more now just for the NHS, really, do you think?
Well, the NHS is incredibly inefficient. That's the big problem. And the whole public sector productivity has dropped like a stone in the last few years as a result of, public sector failures to manage. And the NHS is a very badly managed operation where efficiency doesn't prevail. So its efficiency has gone down massively. And that's really the problem, that the public sector is highly inefficient, and we keep on paying more to fund it, but at the same time raising taxes and so diminishing the capacity of the economy to grow through killing off the entrepreneurial culture. I mean, this budget has been one of the most disastrous I have ever seen.
Well, just on that, because the obvious response to that would be, well, it's not any worse than, the fiscal event that was under the Truss administration. In fact, they keep harking back to that. Do you think that what Labour are doing is more damaging than what Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng did?
Very much so. The whole point about the Truss operation was that they were trying to keep growth on track and trying to keep taxes down. And that was sabotaged by the civil service, particularly the Treasury and the Bank of England, who kind of, created this crisis in the markets by not doing the things they could have done to protect the government. So the Truss government was more sinned against than sinning, frankly, and it had the right ideas about keeping taxes down and boosting growth by protecting our entrepreneurial culture.
I mean, one of the things that we're about to talk about is this home building thing. 1.5 million new homes. OK, fine. But then it's emerged that we're going to have to introduce several 100,000 migrants in order to be able to build those homes, supposedly. The obvious question is, well, are all of those people going to go home after a short-term visa? Probably not. Where are they all going to live in the meantime? And all of this stuff. So it just seems as though they kind of can't do anything right at the moment with that. But just to round us off here, there was another story today, which is that the head of the senior Civil Servants Union has today written to Keir Starmer and said to him that he's accused him of Trumpian language, and apparently people now working in the civil service want to, quote, pull the plug on Starmer. Why? Well, because Starmer has basically called for more efficiencies in the public sector. Do you think Starmer's now waking up to the idea that actually there is a problem here with the public sector and you can't go for growth if you don't get those Luddites off their backside? I've stunned him into silence. There we go. Not for the first time. Well, that was good while it lasted. Oh, he's back. You're back, Patrick. Go on. Sorry, mate. Carry on.
Oh, I'm here. Sorry. I was going to say that the trouble about Starmer and Labour is that they're in the pockets of these public sector unions. And so it's very hard for them to turn on their paymasters and say, you've got to be more efficient. And that's what Starmer needs to do. So that's the problem, really.
Yeah, indeed. Well, buckle up, everybody, because it does look as though more taxes are on the way. We'll have to wait and see whether or not any of those taxes do target working people, because, of course, as we know, none of the previous tax rises hit any working person whatsoever. But I do look around the cabinet and I wonder if any of them do genuinely know what a working person is. They have to tart up their CV if they want to be considered competent for the job, I think. But, Patrick, thank you so much. Patrick Minford there, former advisor to Margaret Thatcher. I've got a lot more coming your way. A trans woman has won Model of the Year at the UK Fashion Awards. So I'm going to be joined by former Miss Great Britain in 2020, reality TV star April Banbury, to discuss the controversial backlash to this and whether or not there is anything wrong with that. But next, I'm going to be asking if the Prime Minister is really committed to getting a grip on this country's immigration crisis. There's a story that's done the rounds that I seem to be quite aware of here. When you see those videos from these migrant hotels, does it not seem quite obvious that we are giving visas to people who barely speak a word of English to go and act as security guards for hotels full of illegal immigrants? And isn't there the problem? Stay tuned.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Storm Dara is expected to bring heavy outbreaks of rain and some severe gales at times as we head into the weekend. Hail snow too for Scotland, and there are multiple Met Office warnings in force, so do stay up to date on our website for those. This is Storm Dara here out to the west, bringing in heavy outbreaks of rain alongside these frontal systems and a good squeeze in the Isobars, so very strong winds at times across the bulk of the country, particularly around western coasts. These outbreaks of rain are set to continue overnight, still falling as snow across high ground in Scotland, and we're really going to see those winds strengthen in western areas overnight too, particularly in western parts of Wales where we do have a red Met Office wind warning in force too. We could see gusts here reaching around 80 to 90 miles per hour. So for the start of Saturday then, it's going to be a very wet start across a lot of the country. Scotland seeing outbreaks of rain, still some hill snow across higher ground as well. And similar across northern parts of England, Northern Ireland, heavy outbreaks of rain and very strong winds, particularly around coastal areas, but even inland areas seeing some very strong gusts at times. Western parts of Wales likely to see severe gales here at times, making very difficult driving conditions. And on the whole through Saturday, there is likely to be disruption as a result of the storm. The heavy outbreaks of rain continuing. Still a very windy day across a large portion of the country, particularly around western coasts. And looking at the temperatures too later on, we can see highs generally between 9 to 10 Celsius, but in those very, very strong winds as well. That's really going to add on to the wind chill, so it is going to feel a very chilly day, particularly under the rain and in those strong winds. Through into Sunday, we do start to see the weather settle down slightly. We do have some outbreaks of rain still, particularly in eastern areas, a few showers feeding into eastern parts of Scotland. The best of the weather, or the driest and brightest of the weather across Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland, but it's still going to be a very blustery day on offer, and we won't really see more settled conditions until we head into next week. Bye for now.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For your chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight,
the Independent Office of National Statistics has conducted vital work on the state of immigration and found the previous government were running an open borders experiment.
thought he quite enjoyed that kind of thing, but now it's revealed that there'll have to be a huge increase in migrants in order to build the 1.5 million new homes that Starmer's promised. Well, where are they all going to live then? Also tonight,
we have been very clear that For working people, we are not going to increase their taxes. So that means we are not increasing income tax, national insurance or VAT.
Expect to see more of this on the front pages at 10:30, because first he said that, didn't he?
Can you say in the clearest possible terms whether from here on in to the end of your term there will be any tax rises?
What I can't do is say to you there are no circumstances unforeseen in the future that wouldn't lead to any change at all.
He's going to put your taxes up again, isn't he? And
after Mauritius elections, the government will move towards treaty signature, and it is then our intention to pursue ratification in 2025.
ridiculously, our Foreign Secretary is now apparently offering Mauritius more money to take the Chagos Islands. Plus,
please tell me, Councillor, what unfair advantages white people have in your force?
I would hope not, none.
Do they have any advantages?
No.
Then how can you be institutionally racist?
apparently diversity training in workplaces is leading to loads of completely fake racism claims. Well, and talking of diversity, Britain's top model now is trans, and the usual types were on Question Time last night.
And don't forget, because those populist policies in the 30s, a certain Adolf Hitler was elected.
Everything's got to be about Hitler. Anyway, I've got all of tomorrow's newspapers tonight with the Director of the Migration and Economic Prosperity Centre, Stephen Wolfe. We've got Guido Fawkes' Ellie Wheatley. And we've also got ex-Labour Party advisor Matthew Torbett. Oh, and British pub culture, everybody. It's the best in the world. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. We are giving visas to migrants who can hardly speak English to work as security guards at hotels full of illegal migrants. Next.
Good evening, it's just gone 10 o'clock. I'm Sophia Hill with your latest headlines from the GB Newsroom. Top story this evening, 3 million people have received an emergency alert from the government this evening after forecasters issued a rare red warning for wind as Storm Dara hits the UK. Gusts of up to 90 miles an hour are expected to batter parts of Wales and the southwest of England, including Cardiff, Bristol and Devon. The warning, in place from 3 a.m. tomorrow, calls for people to take care as flying debris and falling trees could pose a danger to life. An amber warning is also in place for the west coast of the UK, from Scotland to Cornwall and Northern Ireland, with large waves and potential damages to homes and buildings. Heavy rain and over 100 flood warnings are also in effect, only adding to the weekend's challenges. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has signed a controversial trade deal with South American countries, which could have a significant impact on farmers in the UK. The deal has been met with firm opposition from several EU member states, in particular France, and is expected to face a backlash from the farming sectors across Europe, with a significant impact in Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK. European farmers have consistently protested against the EU-Mercosur deal, arguing it could lead to a cheap import of South American foods, especially beef, which they claim does not meet the EU's environmental and food safety standards. The Met's counter-terrorism unit is urging people to trust their instincts and stay vigilant this festive season, with major events like Christmas markets, football matches and carol services drawing large crowds. Officers in London are urging the public to report anything suspicious. Each year, over 10,000 reports are made to counter-terrorism policing, with a fifth providing crucial intelligence to disrupt potential threats. Chief Superintendent Chris Wright says it's the public's role which is vital, with over 40 terrorist plots disrupted since 2017. And the Princess of Wales has made a rare public appearance with her family at Westminster Abbey for her annual Christmas carol service this evening. The royal couple walked into the historic Abbey, where they married in 2011, with their children, who stopped at the kindness tree to hang messages on its branches in dedication to someone who has supported them during their lives. Prince Louis left a touching Christmas message to his grandparents, inspired by his mother's festive celebration. This is the fourth time the Princess has hosted the event, in celebration of the positive qualities found in many and to bring festive cheer to the capital. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Hill. I'll be back in an hour, but now it's back to Patrick.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good evening. Keir Starmer started talking tough on immigration when it emerged that we had net migration of 1 million people the other year.
The Independent Office of National Statistics has conducted vital work on the state of immigration and found the previous government were running an open borders experiment.
Quite surprised he seems to think that's a bad thing. I thought he quite liked that kind of stuff. But then yesterday he did his great reset. And he didn't mention anything about immigration in his list of priorities, something even the BBC noticed.
Set out these milestones this morning. Immigration isn't one of them, but you have talked about it and it is in the document. And so people might wonder whether it's a priority or not. Thank you.
There are basics in government. One of them is security and security of our borders.
Yeah. And today it's emerged that we will need hundreds of thousands of low-skilled immigrants to work in construction to build Starmer's 1.5 million new homes. So the government's been told that they could offer people work visas for 3 or 4 years. Right, well, where are they going to live? Has anyone thought that through? We're going to have to build more homes so the migrants who are building our new homes have somewhere to live. It's bonkers, but it's par for the course, actually, because it's become obvious that we are giving visas to immigrants who can hardly speak English to act as security guards at hotels full of illegal immigrants. Don't believe me? Well, there are loads of videos like this doing the rounds.
Welcome to the Dragonfly Hotel. New recruitment. 3-star. Okay. Overlooking a lovely, picturesque bit of river. You love it. Cup of tea out the back, bit of cake. Victoria sponge. It's locked. You're come to do a video on the hotel. For what? For YouTube, to let the locals know that you've moved on 146 illegal immigrants. How long have you been here? Did you move on here recently? Here? Yeah. What? I'm just walking around.
No, this is the private, this is the restaurant place.
I'm just walking around.
Yeah, if you will not stop, I will call the police. Okay. Hello, I am speaking from PE3 6GA.
You don't even know the location, do you?
I know. You have to leave now.
Yeah, seriously. We are bringing people over from other countries and then employing them to stand there gormlessly in the foyer of hotels, housing people who have just broken into Britain. It's quite funny, really, because by that logic, every 300 illegal immigrants or so will require about 5 legal, low-skilled migrants to look after them. I mean, is it any wonder that the PM says he can't rule out tax increases in future? Because let's be honest, the British taxpayer is paying for all of those people, aren't we? As Nigel Farage pointed out on Question Time.
Selective immigration can be very good for diversity, very good for the economy, very good for all of those things. And you could argue that for decades, up until the early 2000s, it was working really well. But now, not only is it a catastrophe for people's way of life, not only does it deny them access to services, mass immigration is making Britain poorer. And the fact that Keir Starmer today doesn't seem to think it's a priority shows you that with these two parties, it is only going to get worse.
So, yeah, it looks like you'll probably pay even more tax as well, doesn't it?
What I can't do is say to you there are no circumstances unforeseen in the future that wouldn't lead to any change at all. Because if you just look at COVID and the Ukraine situation, everybody knows there are things that we can't see now. But I can tell you our intention was to do the tough stuff in that budget.
Right, but it is foreseen. this is entirely foreseen. We can all see what's going to happen. We bring in migrant labour to build a load of houses, they overstay their visas, and those new homes on the Green Belt and other places in rural England end up being filled with people who aren't very British. Let's get the thoughts from our panel this evening. We've got the Director of the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity, Stephen Wolfe. We've also got the Senior Reporter at Guido Fawkes, Ellie Wheatley, and the former Labour Advisor, Matthew Torbett. Stephen, I'll start with you on this now. I mean, there is something quite laughable, isn't there, about employing low-skilled migrants who can barely speak English to police hotels full of illegal immigrants?
There is, and when I look at not only the numbers coming in, and we'll come to that, I think about what Keir Starmer has been saying, both in the press and in his speeches over the last few weeks. And I think of a quote by Malcolm X, which basically said, a man who stands for nothing falls for anything. And that's what it seems to be at the moment. He just will say anything that he thinks is necessary just to keep him looking like he wants to do something for this country. But the reality is, when you look at that quote from Nigel Farage, it is really, really important to consider that from about 1960 to 1990, we did have a reasonable amount of immigration that was integrated from parts of the Commonwealth, also from the European Union. And it was actually in a time when both our GDP and GNP was actually working pretty well. We had GNP in the top 5 in the world. But from 2000 onwards, from initially Tony Blair's government of allowing 1 million people in 2000 who were asylum seekers and allowing them to make those claims, sorry, 2,000, not 1 million. We've had 1 million asylum applicants since the year 2000. Okay. And what have we seen since then? GDP standing still, GNP falling, taxes rising. All the issues that you talked about in hospitals. And I think we can talk about this. Failure in this country, I don't think Starmer can achieve any success in this.
Well, if we are going to have 1.5 million new homes by the end of this term, I believe that works out as something about 950 houses a day, which isn't going to happen, considering we haven't really started that yet, I don't think. And apparently we need to introduce hundreds of thousands of migrants in order to help us do that. Isn't that just a completely self-defeating...
Yeah, it's a sort of conveyor belt, isn't it? I mean, yesterday, Starmer's plan for change, which, by the way, is his 19th relaunch since becoming Labour leader in 2020, laid out, you know, the milestones and now we have 27 various foundations, missions, first steps, etc. And secure borders, a wishy-washy phrase, is only mentioned twice out of 27, right? It's unbelievable. I mean, so far, the only milestone Starmer's achieved since becoming Prime Minister is the fact that over 20,000 migrants have crossed the Channel. You know, it's unbelievable, really. But he talks about the economy a lot, right? Especially in these missions and foundations and milestones. But 1.6 million out-of-work migrants cost the taxpayer £8.5 billion a year. And that's not including asylum seekers. And now we're being told by Yvette Cooper that she's actually extending the time that asylum seekers can stay in these migrant hotels, asylum seeker hotels. So currently we spend around 8 million a day on asylum seekers, asylum seeker hotels.
Just over 3 billion a year.
And that's going to obviously double now that she's extended the time that you can that they can stay. It just shows, though, that Starmer's clearly not listening to the public, because immigration is still the #1 issue for Britons, right? And Nigel's absolutely correct in saying, you know, if he's not even making a sort of measurable target in his 6 new milestones, shiny new milestones, I mean, he's ignoring the public, isn't he?
OK, well, go on. I imagine you would vehemently disagree with what we've been hearing here so far. Do you think he's doing the right thing?
It's hard to argue.
Oh, right, OK.
I think...
Try, for balance.
I think with yesterday...
You see, the Labour left campus...
Yesterday infuriated me, because for me it was the worst speech from a Labour leader I'd seen in quite some time. It was middle-class waffle, talking about, you know, living through the... he was like a character from The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, right? It was totally made up and should have been on the West End. Yeah. That said, if we look at immigration in the round, I am quite liberal when it comes to immigration, which will surprise probably nobody. However, I do think you have to have the infrastructure to cope with it, right? Which we haven't. And as it currently stands, we're not going to be able to play catch-up, as it currently is. Therefore, we won't build 1.2 million homes either.
Well, you can't.
That's just not going to happen. It's a nice target to say it won't happen. The planning stuff will push back against. What worries me is we focus on the numbers a lot, which is fair enough. I think we need to look a bit more on the proportions. Reason being, it's coming down the tracks for me and you when we get old and grey, or I may get greyer. Because in the 80s, we had 4 working people for every 1 pensioner. That now currently stands at 3, and he's getting very close to 2. And because of successive failures of all governments of all stripes of not training their own people using things like the apprenticeship levy for not proper things, we're going to need, unfortunately, some level of immigration. Otherwise, we're not going to get a state pension. We're not going to have people putting tax.
Is that good enough? I hear you, absolutely. And, you know, no one wants to be left out on your backside when you're in your 80s, right? But at the same time, is the solution to that to throw the doors to your country open to the Middle East and Africa?
No, Patrick. What we have seen is from the political elites who are supporting liberal policies on immigration, large corporations that have supported it, and bodies like the Treasury have been running an immigration Ponzi scheme for the past 15 to 20 years. And their basic idea is let's pump up GDP by pumping up people into the country rather than considering the very issues that both of you have spoken about. Efficiencies, looking at the way that we can run our country in a much better way with technology. All of that is things that we could have done, but we wanted to ship in cheap labour. I was talking about early on in the green room about Tony Benn's Arguments for Socialism, one of my first ever books on politics that I ever looked at. And he said that the corporations in this country, along with the elites, wanted to have a low-skilled Britain.
Right.
Part of the argument for Brexit was to do the opposite. Make us more technologically advanced, make us more efficient, reduce taxation, make our services. And you cannot do that if you have mass immigration at the numbers that we've got. We won't get integration and we won't get efficiency.
We'll
get poverty.
Yeah,
get
we're going to have to be relatively quick with the rest of this. But, Ellie, I think something's happening out there. This is purely anecdotally, but I think something's happening with the younger generation. So the 18 to 25s, I suppose, loosely speaking, maybe even a bit younger, who are looking now and thinking maybe they're getting into work for the first time and they're realising how much of their salary is going out on tax and they're questioning where that's going. The housing issue. Do you think that that's something that's happening? We're going to have a younger generation now who maybe are a bit more right-wing, actually.
100%. We've seen it in the polls. I mean, a lot of the Gen Z lot are all voting for reform, or say they would, because some of them, you know, are too young now. But, you know, come 2029, they will be able to. And the thing about reform is that they're promising something that the others aren't. First of all, the Tories, obviously, terrible track record on net migration. And Kemi's not promising any numbers on that, which we can understand why, because they failed so badly previously. Obviously, Labour's even worse. But reform, we're actually going, no, this is a goal. And actually, voters want parties to have a goal, something to work towards that shows them that actually they are trying to do something. I mean, obviously, I am Gen Z, and a lot of my friends, particularly young male friends, are all going, yes, reform's absolutely right, because, as you say, they aren't, you know, they're struggling to get on the housing ladder, struggling to pay rent, let alone actually getting on the housing ladder. Taxes are so high, and yeah, so I completely agree.
Just a quick one, short one, Matthew, that's all right. You know, we're just Justin Trudeau in Canada put a 3-year block, I think, on immigration. That is the Hail Mary for him. Do you think that Starmer would ever do anything like that here?
I think all options have to be on the table, and I think Morgan McSweeney is someone that will recognise and has recognised that reform are the biggest threat to Labour at the next election, as opposed to the Tories, and therefore you may see similar tactics here. I don't know, but I don't think anything will be off the table like his speech last week that was quite strong.
Good stuff, guys. Thank you very, very much. Good start to the hour again. And I believe that we might actually, talking of, you know, giving away things in Britain for free, this is actually a good thing. It's our biggest and greatest Great British giveaway, and it's the chance to win £50,000 in cold, hard, tax-free cash. Yes, that's right, just in time for Christmas. Here's how you can win that whopping 50k.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For your chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Right, we're up. OK, coming up. We do have a bit of fun in the break. Coming up, I'll be bringing you tomorrow's newspaper front pages very shortly, and I'm going to be taking a look at the moment, well, this moment from last night's Question Time.
Don't forget, because those populist policies in the 30s, a certain Adolf Hitler was elected.
Yeah, it's getting ridiculous now, isn't it? Oh, you drunk water. Hitler used to drink water. You know, it's just relentless, isn't it? But next, though, a trans woman has won the Model of the Year at the UK Fashion Awards. I'm going to be joined by former Miss Great Britain in 2020 and now reality TV star April Banbury to discuss the controversial backlash to this. Stay tuned.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
The Daily Mail now, Josh, and pub landlords have to worry about more than the optics when it comes to offensive banter,
Yeah,
it
this
seems.
is a really big story and important. Pub landlords could have to become banter cops to stop themselves being sued by staff offended by comments from customers under workers' rights reform. So, Labour, when they were part of their election process, they were like, we're going to reform workers' rights, and that all sounds good on paper, but there were issues in terms of how might it affect employees and fear from employees costing them more money. One of these things that they're sort of pushing through, though, is that in the Equality Act of 2010, part of the issue was that if you were offended at work or someone said something sexist or racist, something that affected you, the employer had to take some sort of, they had three chances to kind of take action.
Yeah.
Now, the employer should have taken action already. So employees can sue employers. Now, this has a big impact on us because we're comics and we perform in venues. And if some of the bar staff hear a joke that they don't like, then they can sue their employer, potentially, under this legislation.
So it's not punters?
Well, also, it could be like you're at a bar and some bloke is like, oh, I like that top, or whatever. That's not good behaviour. But the point is now that employee could sue their employer.
So, because, I mean, the sort of scenario I was imagining was that a barmaid was being maybe sexually harassed or
That's
something.
what they're focusing in this article, but other articles have gone down the free speech route. Okay. And also venues and universities having lectures. We saw it at, in Edinburgh Fringe Festival and Sadowitz. He had a show cancelled not because of any punters, but because two of the 18-year-olds were working. They were upset.
There was a bar in Brighton, wasn't there? There was a story we covered a few weeks ago. A bar in Brighton threw some people out. Because
exactly. They had turfs on the.
Turfs.
Yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Welcome back to Pantry Christys tonight. Now, a trans woman has won Model of the Year at the UK Fashion Awards. So 21-year-old Alex Consani became the world's youngest transgender model at the age of 12 and has now bagged the top prize. This comes after the BBC awarded Women's Footballer of the Year to Barbara Banda, who failed the gender verification criteria. The BBC also included a trans Colombian scientist in their annual list of 100 most inspiring women. But how do people feel about what some would say is a man impersonating a woman being the top model of the year? Well, I'm joined now by former Miss Great Britain and reality TV star April Banbury. April, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. Now, it's important to say, this was not one of those awards where it's gender categories, I believe, right? So so therefore the fact that, you know, it's not like a man as quote unquote man as woman or woman's award, right? So I do get that. But how do you feel about this? Do you see it as progress, or do you see it maybe as, I don't know, a kind of a diversity tick, do you think? What do you reckon?
I 100% think it's a really positive story, personally. I feel like inclusivity is so important within the fashion industry, and it's like one of those groundbreaking moments that I think we needed. You know, it wasn't gender specific, and ultimately she is now a woman. She does identify as a woman, so why should she not win?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose there could be an argument that maybe they took the award off someone who was a natural-born woman, in a sense, and is someone who is... But many people would argue that they are... Just because they say that they're a woman doesn't necessarily make them a woman, OK? And that might be a block on other women having success. What do you think?
I think, personally, I mean, for example, she was born a man, and you don't choose the body you're born in. And if she didn't identify with the gender that she was given, she didn't want to, you know, be the man that she was born. She wanted to be a woman. So therefore she is deserving of it, because she is now a woman. We can't help the way we're born, but we can help the way that we live.
I mean, it will obviously come as no surprise to you that I never had a sniff of a modelling career. However, I understand that the modelling industry can be quite difficult to break into, and the concern might be that, like we've seen in certain other things, whether it's sports or whatever, where if you also end up with natural-born men competing for the same kind of jobs that natural-born women would go for, that then reduces the amount of jobs available for natural-born women. Is that not something that bothers you particularly?
Not necessarily, because it's still open to women, you know, so why not, you know, celebrate inclusivity? But I think it's you know, we're almost in 2025 now. You know, we should be moving forward in these positive directions. I don't think that anyone should take any sort of personal offence or feel any type of negativity towards it. Why can't we, you know, all be inclusive, regardless of gender?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the fashion industry has always been very, very forward-looking in that sense, hasn't it, really? And I suppose if there was any aspect where we shouldn't really be surprised at this kind of award going to somebody who is transgender, then, you know, it would be the fashion industry, wouldn't it? Could I just ask you on something on, you know, I don't want to pry too much, you know, into your personal life or anything like that at all, but, you know, would you be happy for somebody who identifies as a woman to use the same bathroom as you, for example?
Yeah, because they're now a woman. Absolutely. If someone is identifying as a woman and is a transgender woman, they are a woman. So, of course, I would be more than happy to share a bathroom. We do, you know, have mixed bathrooms anyway now, so I don't see that as an issue. Personally, that's my opinion. I don't know if everyone would agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the reason why I ask, isn't it? Because some people see that there's the potential there for that to be abused, really. I suppose there are examples of it having been. But yes, no, well, look, thank you very, very much. It was great to have you on the show, and it was great to have you on to talk about that particular topic. As former Miss Great Britain there and reality TV star April Banbury, thank you very, very much. Now, coming up, I'm going to be taking a look at this moment from last night's BBC Question Time.
Don't forget, because those populist policies in the 30s, a certain Adolf Hitler was elected.
Look, can we just knock all this stuff on the head now? I think everyone's sick of it. They tried it with Trump in America. You know, Trump is, quotes-unquote, literally Hitler. People have stopped buying that because it's a load of rubbish. And we're getting this again with Nigel Farage, aren't we? We're having it with anyone who's on the right. The similarities, oh, you know, you said this, Hitler said that. Absolutely shocking. I think we need to move on from this now. But I'll be bringing you tomorrow's newspaper front pages. And I have had a little advanced sight of some of them. So quite interesting stuff about Kate on there. So you might want to stay tuned for that, Alec.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Storm Dara is expected to bring heavy outbreaks of rain and some severe gales at times as we head into the weekend. Hail snow too for Scotland, and there are multiple Met Office warnings in force, so do stay up to date on our website for those. This is Storm Dara here out to the west, bringing in heavy outbreaks of rain alongside these frontal systems and a good squeeze in the Isobars, so very strong winds at times across the bulk of the country, particularly around western coasts. These outbreaks of rain are set to continue overnight, still falling as snow across high ground in Scotland, and we're really going to see those winds strengthen in western areas overnight too, particularly in western parts of Wales where we do have a red Met Office wind warning in force too. We could see gusts here reaching around 80 to 90 miles per hour. So for the start of Saturday then, it's going to be a very wet start across a lot of the country. Scotland seeing outbreaks of rain, still some hill snow across higher ground as well. And similar across northern parts of England, Northern Ireland, heavy outbreaks of rain and very strong winds, particularly around coastal areas, but even inland areas seeing some very strong gusts at times. Western parts of Wales likely to see severe gales here at times, making very difficult driving conditions. And on the whole, through Saturday, there is likely to be disruption as a result of the storm. The heavy outbreaks of rain continuing. Still a very windy day across a large portion of the country, particularly around western coasts. And looking at the temperatures too later on, we can see highs generally between 9 to 10 Celsius, but in those very, very strong winds as well. That's really going to add on to the wind chill, so it is going to feel a very chilly day, particularly under the rain and in those strong winds. Through into Sunday, we do start to see the weather settle down slightly. We do have some outbreaks of rain still, particularly in eastern areas, a few showers feeding into eastern parts of Scotland. The best of the weather, or the driest and brightest of the weather across Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland. But it's still going to be a very blustery day on offer, and we won't really see more settled conditions until we head into next week. Bye for now.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
OK, welcome back to Patrick Christys. Tonight, I've got the very first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages now, so let's get stuck in. The Daily Star is the first one I've got here. Sucking up to head honcho beats hard graft if you want to succeed at work. Yes, boss, great idea, boss. OK, all right. Apparently, forget about working hard if you want to get in your career. Experts say you're more likely to get a pay rise by sucking up to your boss. I would politely suggest that that is working hard.
Yeah, exactly. Having to laugh like that, you know.
Yeah, exactly. He'll be back next week as a result of that.
Yeah, exactly.
You laugh in all of the right places.
Generations. It's been going on since time immemorial. You had to suck up to the boss after you lost your head.
Yeah.
In the early days. Now you just get a pay rise.
But turning up to the office, which is a rare thing these days, you know, looking smart, looking presentable, that is all part of actually working hard, I think.
I do that every day, although my boss is very funny.
Good. I don't know, what do you think this is just shameless old boys elitism?
No, I think, it's certainly what I found in Westminster. It's who you know rather than what you know. But the problem is, though, if you're too nice and too loyal, they might ignore you. Now, if you're good enough to leave, they actually might keep you. So I don't know. I think it depends.
It's the slippery slope, isn't it? It's the tightrope that we walk. All right, let's go to The Guardian now. Much more serious story, this. Rape trials collapse due to record court delays. Justice system backlog sees doubling of victims pulling out of cases. So this is, you know, basically, I suppose, about, victims feeling that they can't get any chance of conviction. Supposedly, more than 280 rape prosecutions have fallen through, so which is 7.3% of the total, and that was in the last year. So when you also then think about how many rape allegations end up in court at all, you've got a vanishingly small number of convictions, haven't you?
Yeah, well, our court systems are just, they're overrun by things. Now, especially with the assisted dying bill, potentially going through, I mean, they were completely against it because they don't have the time.
But I think the issue
like
from this is COVID caused a backlog. And also, you've seen for the Labour government, one of the first things they did, and I got it through an email as a barrister myself, showing that they're actually cutting the number of hours that are in courts by at least 15,000 hours, I think it was, that they were cutting over a course of a year.
As a barrister, what would you make of the fact that when Keir Starmer was DPP and wanted to make an example of people, he did Nightingale courts for the 2011 riots and following the shooting of Mark Duggan? For something as serious as this, would you not foresee that actually Nightingale courts and courts that sit at weekends and whatever would be useful to try and cut down on the backlog, or is it not as simple as that?
Well, I would do, but I actually went recently was in a party and someone said, "Oh, you're a barrister. We've got so few barristers out there. Would you like to come back?" So I applied, and as soon as they found out that I wanted a UKIP MEP, they said, "We're not going to have you."
Really? We need barristers, but not that kind of barrister.
I wasn't left enough. So
well, there we are. But yes, OK, let's go on to The Independent now. There are these big weather warnings for the weekend. Storm Dara. I was due to do a 10K on Sunday in, can I just say, Richmond, right? So it's not exactly the epicenter.
Oh, wow.
It's not exactly. I don't live in Richmond, but not exactly the epicenter of natural disasters. Exactly. And they've cancelled it. They've cancelled it because of the wind on a Sunday, which obviously now means I have no choice but to go and enjoy a Sunday roast somewhere instead. But I just thought, we're adults. If it's a bit windy, I might decide not to run. But then I made the mistake once, which I'm not going to repeat here, of preempting a weather event and going, it's only going to be a bit of wind, and like 10 people died.
It's a severe warning, and I was supposed to be going to Winter Wonderland tomorrow, and apparently they closed it today, Hyde Park.
Really?
So I think Winter Wonderland would probably want to carry on and make the money, but Hyde Park have closed the park tomorrow.
Winter Wonderland closed with Storm Bert a couple of weeks ago, didn't they?
Oh, well.
I mean, I think. Well, it was a bit rainy, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't that bad.
That's what I mean.
I mean, but they cancelled all the trains, obviously, any excuse to not to ride the trains.
I did notice that on The Guardian, train spotting returns after 30 years. I'd be surprised if you spot any train.
It's now much harder than it was, isn't it? But, all right, we'll whiz ourselves over to the Eye. Labour drops NHS pledge to cut A&E waiting times to 4 hours. So apparently there was a commitment to treat 95% of A&E patients within 4 hours, and it's been abandoned. Downing Street says it can no longer guarantee that target will be met by 2029. Ambulance crews forced to keep people waiting outside hospital for up to 12 hours. I suppose, Matthew, when you look at this and you think, well, now pretty much everything we're told, your taxes going up, it's to fund the NHS, and you think, like the farmers thing, for example, if they did manage to raise whatever it was, 520 million quid's worth of that's like 2 days of NHS spending or something. It's not even that, is it? And at what point are we going to go, right, the NHS, it just doesn't work. We can't keep going like this.
Well, probably not that long by the looks of it. I think also the idea, I've pulled my hair out with the farmer stuff and the winter fuel allowance, because I think you're picking on people you can't electorally afford to pick on. Older voters will go out and vote. Farmers will clearly go out and vote with their feet. And I think for the simple maths, you're going to get £1.5 billion, right, which is nothing, as probably a day's worth of NHS funding. If you'd have put corporation tax up by 1%, you'd have got £7 billion, more than 3 times that amount, and probably not quite the same awful headlines and protests. You're not going to get a load of city boys down at Parliament saying, hey, we're not having this, putting 1% up. I find it bizarre. And
people would leave instead, and then there's no tax.
I think, it avoids the bad headlines.
If you really wanted to get rich, then hit those who are regarded as foreign businesses, foreign pension funds and foreign insurance companies that own property in this country. if you hit them, then you'd cover it.
This is just
And then,
another...
unfortunately, BlackRock and other entities that have invested in that, and surprise, surprise, isn't one of them a big supporter of Keir Starmer?
But this is just another pledge that he's U-turned on.
I don't know.
Because do you not remember, a couple of weeks into government, Starmer was promising reform or die, no more money for the NHS, and then, of course, 22 billion was handed over to them in the budget.
Well, Wes Streeting was really kind of... No, he didn't say it like this. Exactly, but he was going to whip the NHS into shape. We're going to get it all sorted. Well, really, what he's done is give quite big pay rises out and not a lot else, hasn't he? Yeah, I think, for the NHS.
I think there's something to be said for the pay rises. You know, if you want to look at every year, it's about 21% down on what it was previously. And I think there's an argument to maybe hope that as long as you pay them, they'll go back to work. If they don't, you know, you've been over, haven't you? But I think there's all the talk of using the private sector, which I think is sensible in the short term, making the NHS a truly 7-day service, because we all know operations don't happen on a Saturday or a Sunday. It isn't a 7-day service.
Yeah, which is ridiculous, by the way.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You should not, in a country like ours, and there's no way that you should stand a better chance of survival if you have a heart attack on a Monday as opposed to if you have a heart attack on a Friday night. I'm sorry, it shouldn't work like that, I don't think.
That requires wholesale form of the consultancy process and senior doctors who complain how they've not been able to get beyond the ladder.
Yeah.
You know, they're stuck at this glass ceiling.
You know, we've got locum doctors ripping the heart out of the NHS economically as well. There's a whole load to look at. And I think there's nothing wrong with keeping the target. If you've not hit it, you go, you know what, we did better than the other side, though, and don't you all feel slightly better than you did before? It's bizarre.
Yeah, let's just whiz on over to the Times. MI5 now shifts its focus from terrorists to rogue states. So they've got hard choices to make, apparently. Track China, Russia and Iran. So MI5 has been forced to pare back its focus on counter-terrorism to deal with the growing threat posed by Russia and other hostile states. Well, right, fine, but I'm just going to whiz us on to the Daily Mail because it's kind of a similar-ish story here. Reeves, we can't boost UK defence without making cuts. So raising defence spending will mean squeezing other parts of government, Rachel Reeves has warned. This is an exclusive interview with the Daily Mail. She says that she will launch the biggest audit of government spending in almost 2 decades. I mean, these two things are hand-in-hand, by the story here on the Times and the Mail, aren't they? You know, people have been really screaming about increasing defence spending for absolutely ages now. The Trident missiles kind of just plopped into the ocean when we tried to do some kind of test launch with them, didn't we? And now it looks as though domestic terror, the threat there, is going to have to fall by the wayside so we can keep an eye on China, Russia and Iran. It doesn't fill anyone with confidence.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Starmer and Lammy are cozying up to Beijing, so I'm glad at least, you know, MI5 have got an eye on it. But, yeah, I mean, of course, we've been... the other day, when the Defence Minister came out and said, actually, we wouldn't last more than 6 weeks in an all-out war with Russia.
6 months. Give him a little bit of credit. 6 months.
6 months.
6 months.
Yeah,
sorry,
just a little bit longer.
Sorry, 6 months. But we only have enough munitions for 3 weeks.
Oh, OK, fine.
Sorry. Thank you for fact-checking me.
Yeah, but it's not. It's a
we
bleak
do have
picture.
enough police to arrest a load of tweeters.
Yes, that's true. That's good.
Yeah, well, that's interesting, isn't it? I'm just going to take us to the Daily Express now because there was the picture story of Kate on a couple of the other front pages, but the Daily Express have just gone really big on it, and they say, love is the light that can shine bright even in our darkest times. Caring Kate's message of Xmas. I hate it when they just put Xmas, not Christmas.
Yeah.
Xmas hope. I don't like it.
Trying to make it all in line to make it pretty.
I get it for the logistics of being a sub-editor, but I think, anyway. The Princess of Wales gave a heartwarming message at her annual carol service. The Mirror have also gone for it. Kate's Abbey Christmas. Right. Princess shines as she joins family at carol concert. The Sun, Kate lights up Christmas. Yeah. The Princess of Wales smiles proudly. And the significance with this, really, is that actually she looks well. She seems... it's quite hard to tell from all these pictures. She seems happy in herself and all of that. Because it's been a tumultuous year, hasn't it, to say the very least, for Kate, battling with cancer, seemingly overcoming cancer, we think, and, you know, being there. That's a nice, heartwarming image. I mean, the Telegraph have also got it as well there. Nice, heartwarming image, I think, to round the year off, maybe, for the royals, Stephen.
I'm loving it, and I think, really, this shines all of the importance of what the royal family can do to lift the spirits of British people in a time of real difficulty. We talked about Welby before. This is exactly what he should have been doing. And when people talk about not wanting to have the royal family anymore, I think this is really what they should be looking at. They help us, they guide us, and the line, love is the light that can shine bright even in our darkest times. I think it's a poetic, beautiful line that we should all take to our hearts. It's Christmas.
I just like... I know this
Christmas isn't just for children, it's for all of us.
It is. I know this might sound a little bit ridiculous, OK, but I do really like the fact that when Kate rocks up and she's like a style icon, and you've got Louis there, who's in an immaculate suit, and, you know, George is always well turned out. I don't know, I know people might say this sounds a bit silly, but I just like that. I like the fact that there's something kind of quite proper and British.
With you, and I think most people do agree with you, by the way. You know, the royal family is the family to look up to, and it's, you know, in your dark times, I mean, obviously there's all sorts of terrible things going on in the world. It's nice to know that actually, you know, there is something to look up to.
They're real. They've had their problems as well.
Yes.
I know people who've got cancer this year. Some have not been able to survive, sadly. But, you know, and I think what you see with them is the reality of their human beings. They have become more normal in some ways, but they still have an opportunity to help.
Well, those are all your front page. Now, what I was planning on doing was discussing a clip from Question Time last night where an audience member, yet again, just referenced Hitler all the time. And we're going to talk about whether or not we need to just move on from this. We're pressed for time in this section, so what I think we might be better doing is hitting that break now, talking about it when we come back, and then also doing the Greatest Britain and Union Jackass as well. So that is what we're going to do, and I will see you in 2. I'm Patrick Christys. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Apparently, in the Mail, page 5, hard-pressed bosses already having to deal with deadlines, red tape and staff who won't actually come into the office over Christmas. And they're saying that Christmas parties this year are going to be as lame as ever because everyone's afraid of basically getting cancelled or misbehaving or getting sacked for their behaviour. Would you risk it, Trey, at Christmas?
Do you know, I've actually never had a normal job in my life, so I wouldn't last a second because I'm not very politically correct. But it must be horrendous, really, because rather than enjoying yourself, you're having to completely always censor yourself. And it might be the most innocent of stuff that's said to someone that they then take offence to, which means you're going to probably just keep your mouth shut, which doesn't sound like the best of parties, does it, really?
No. Tricky one, isn't it? Because you're not at work, so it's not an office issue if, you know, some banter and it's taken the wrong way. But still, it's still a work environment, isn't it?
Yeah. If HR shows up, it's a work party. It's a work event.
HR shows up, I'm gone.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. And so even for us this year, first of all, it's the first year we're calling it a holiday party. I don't know how I felt about that.
Really? What, your company's doing that?
Yeah, they're calling it a holiday party.
Oh, no, well, no.
Yeah, I know. I voted against.
So they got rid of the word
Christmas.
Why?
Because we want to be inclusive.
How's it not inclusive to call it Christmas?
I know. Trust me.
Are you still going to go? I wouldn't bother going. I'd say no.
I am going to go, but I'm going to go dressed as Mrs. Claus, and it's going to be Christmassy, and I'm going to make sure that Christmas enters the door with me.
Yeah, you spread that Christian vibe.
100%. But outside of that, there is that element of HR showing up, and HR will be sober, and they've already prepped them to say, like, listen, this isn't your party. HR can have their party. This is your hangout.
Yep.
Make sure everyone's being PC.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. Now, on BBC Question Time, last night, one audience member signalled a warning that we may be heading in the same direction as Nazi Germany. Now, this always winds me up, right? Because everyone seems to have this idea that every single time someone ever does anything, well, Hitler did that. Well, where's that going to end? You know, Hitler probably drank coffee.
Yeah, also, he was a vegetarian as well, famously.
Animal.
Ban smoking.
All vegans now.
Ban smoking, is that, you know, we're going to start calling kids that, mate?
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, it's bonkers, isn't it? But anyway, that was on Question Time last night. We've teased the clip a little bit. But do you think this is wearing quite thin now? These constant... Yeah, these constant things about, like, well, your policies, Nigel, those populist policies, that's what led to Hitler.
But this guy sought out to target Nigel. So actually, the New European tracked him down, interviewed him, and he said, yes. So I literally went there to target Nigel and you know, because I'm so scared that his policies are, you know, similar to those in the 1930s in Germany. I mean, it is unbelievable. It's ridiculous.
I was trying to analyse what reform policies are identical to that of Hitler's. I didn't see him wanting to move into Czechoslovakia. I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing him wanting to annihilate the Jewish community, disabled people, gay or lesbians at all. That's not in the policy in there unless it's in the small print somewhere.
Let's just hear the
silly little man.
Let's hear the clip, actually. Let's see the clip, and then I'll get Matthew to react off the back of it as well.
Migrants, illegal or legal, weren't responsible for austerity. That was the Conservative government. Migrants and illegals were not responsible for Brexit. Migrants and illegals were not responsible for Liz Truss's failure as leadership. And don't forget, because those populist policies in the 30s, a certain Adolf Hitler was elected. And if we follow the same rhetoric, the same blaming of migrants, we will go in the same way. And the future of that path is very, very bleak.
Everyone...
applause.
Yeah. Do you think we over Hitler when it comes to things? We do. I think we over...
You're losing the argument as soon as you use Hitler.
As soon as someone brings up Hitler, now I'm like, oh, come on. You know, or maybe we're wrong. I don't know. Are we being a bit silly?
No, I think invoking Hitler is never wise. It never turns out well in an argument, and people think you're being melodramatic. What I would say in a sort of merely academic way is that populist parties do well in times of economic crises and when people are feeling the pinch, as does scapegoating people. So if the gentleman has an argument that, oh, I think we're blaming the wrong people and actually it's those at the top that are laughing at us, I can understand it. I think where he will lose lots of the room, although apparently not wherever question time was last night, is by saying, and we'll end up like Hitler. I hope for everyone's sake he's wrong and being slightly melodramatic.
I just remember, who do you think you were kidding, Mr. Hitler?
I was wondering when you were going to sing tonight. I didn't think it would necessarily be that song. But there we go.
Got to bring some light entertainment into a Friday night.
Talking of light entertainment, and if any outsiders wonder what goes on inside a good British boozer, all right, this video might be the perfect introduction. Here we go. Love it. Matthew, your reaction?
Anyone that knows me knows that most of my personality is being from Stockport. I know that lad. That lad is cool, yeah? That lad, I see him at Stockport when I go to the games. That's Tom Lowe, and off the back of this, he's gone so viral, he's doing a headline gig at the Bobby Beale pub in a couple of weeks' time.
That's such a good story.
If anybody has never visited Stockport, they should, and they should go to the Chestergate pub where they do that most mornings, afternoons, and evenings.
Mornings, afternoons,
Love it.
They do a good egg, chips and beans.
Well done. Well done. No, I love it. All right, guys, we're very pressed for time here now, so I think we've just got time quickly to do Greatest Britain Union Jackass. So who's your Greatest Britain, please?
Tim Montgomery for turning to reform. Jackass has got to be Welby.
Oh, well, we could hold your horses.
Sorry.
It's all right, but...
Tim Montgomery, definitely.
Go on, then. There we go.
James Dyson for leading the charge against Reeves and her business-bashing budget. He called it an egregious an egregious act of self-harm earlier this week. And of course, you know, he pays all his taxes and he's a British success story. And so, yeah, he's leading the charge on that.
All right, OK, go on, Matthew.
It might surprise some, but GBNews. Beating Sky in the ratings over the last month, and I think regardless of what people think of GBNews, it appears they're here to stay.
Good stuff. Well, just as well, because then we're all in a job. There we are. Fantastic. All right, well, I think on that note, I probably do have to go for GBNews. I do like how the left-wingers on the panels have now realised how they can win this, right?
Yeah.
Which is just shamelessly... This is on the front of the Daily Star. Stuck up. OK, now, so you've gone... We know your Union Jackass. You've gone for Welby. It's a strong contender. Who's your...
BBC Verify, because they managed to spend more despite cutting the staff and also having to get fact-checked all the time time. But so yeah.
West Street in for his rather in poor taste joke about Louise Haig at the Spectator party.
Fine, OK, we're going to go for Welby. Now, I think I've just got a couple of seconds to lob it over to headliners. What have you got coming up? Oh, no, we've not. Sorry, headliners. Oh, that's my fault entirely. Anyway, headliners is on next, and it's going to be an absolutely fantastic show during which they go through all of the front pages in their own inimitable style. They've got a top panel of people tonight, and make sure that you keep it GB News. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you to everyone who's watched and listened. I will see you next week at 9 p.m. Take care.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Storm Dara is expected to bring heavy outbreaks of rain and some severe gales at times as we head into the weekend. Hail snow too for Scotland, and there are multiple Met Office warnings in force, so do stay up to date on our website for those. This is Storm Dara here out to the west, bringing in heavy outbreaks of rain alongside these frontal systems and a good squeeze in the isobars, so very strong winds at times across the bulk of the country, particularly around western coasts. These outbreaks of rain are set to continue overnight, still falling as snow across high ground in Scotland, and we're really going to see those winds strengthen in western areas overnight too, particularly in western parts of Wales, where we do have a red Met Office wind warning in force too. We could see gusts here reaching around 80 to 90 miles per hour. So for the start of Saturday then, it's going to be a very wet start across a lot of the country. Scotland seeing outbreaks of rain, still some hill snow across higher ground as well. And similar across northern parts of England, Northern Ireland, heavy outbreaks of rain and very strong winds, particularly around coastal areas, but even inland areas seeing some very strong gusts at times. Western parts of Wales likely to see severe gales here at times, making very difficult driving conditions. And on the whole, through Saturday, there is likely to be disruption as a result of the storm. The heavy outbreaks of rain continuing. Still a very windy day across a large portion of the country, particularly around western coasts. And looking at the temperatures too later on, we can see highs generally between 9 to 10 Celsius, but in those very, very strong winds as well, that's really going to add on to the wind chill. So it is going to feel a very chilly day, particularly under the rain and in those strong winds. Through into Sunday, we do start to see the weather settle down slightly. We do have some outbreaks of rain still, particularly in eastern areas, a few showers feeding into eastern parts of Scotland. The best of the weather, or the driest and brightest of the weather across Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland. But it's still going to be a very blustery day on offer, and we won't really see more settled conditions until we head into next week. Bye for now.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For your chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
What do you think?
Morning. I think we have failed young drivers as a society, and we need to train them better and train them earlier. I think that the idea of stopping them carrying passengers